Practical Anarchy, A Guide to Self-Determination, Dickie Dredd. Section 58. Why people cling to parties. Fear, habit and belonging. Parties endure not simply because of their policies, but because they are presented as the bulwark against chaos. Without them, we are told, there would be disorder, mobs in the streets, ungoverned markets, no national direction. The fear narrative is powerful, especially in societies where the state has long equated authority with stability. As we showed earlier in relation to terrorism, fear is a tool of discipline, a way of convincing people that authority, even corrupt authority, is preferable to uncertainty. Intergenerational habits. For most citizens, allegiance to parties is habitual. Families pass down loyalties like heirlooms. We've always voted Labour, or our family has been a Conservative for generations. In the US, this logic is even starker, with red and blue states treated almost as inherited identities. The repetition of elections every few years ingrains the rhythm further. Voting becomes a civic ritual, detached from whether it changes anything. The section on democratic illusion highlighted this ritualised quality. The act matters more than the outcome. Belonging and identity. Parties also serve as tribes. They give people a sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than themselves. This is particularly attractive in fragmented, individualised societies where communal bonds have eroded. Rallies, conventions and even online memes provide emotional connection. Much like religion, parties supply identity. They offer a home for values, grievances and aspirations, even if they rarely deliver them on their promises. Case study: US evangelical loyalty to the Republican Party. A striking example is the unwavering loyalty of many white evangelical Christians in the US to the Republican Party. Despite policies that often harm working class voters materially, evangelical communities rarely rally behind Republican candidates out of cultural and moral alignment. Trump's presidency shows this vividly. Pastors portray him as chosen by God, and congregations view support as a matter of faith rather than policy. The attachment is less about economic benefit than about belonging, being on God's side in a cultural war. The result illustrates how parties can capture identity so tightly that material contradictions are ignored. For anarchists, the persistence of party loyalty is a reminder that domination is not only structural but psychological. Fear, habit and belonging lock people into systems that repeatedly fail them. As the earlier section showed, workers often cling to jobs that exploit them because alternatives seem risky. In the same way, voters cling to parties that exploit their loyalty because alternatives are unimaginable. Breaking this cycle requires not only structural change but cultural shifts, nurturing solidarities and identities beyond the party form. Section 50, it says 57 there, but it's actually 59. And the title's fucking wrong. I'm not going to screw that up a bit. Right, you should say identity, politics and division, how parties exploit difference. Party systems thrive on division. Elections are sold as contests of ideas, but in practice much of the energy comes from drawing hard boundaries between us and them. Whether the lines are of class, race, gender, region or belief, parties sharpen differences into weapons. Earlier sections showed how advertising functions as a form of violence. Politics mirrors this by marketing identities as brands, designed less to persuade than to polarise. The UK and US template. In the UK, Brexit revealed how national identity could be split into Leavers and Remainers, with both Labour and Conservative factions using the divide to consolidate their positions. In the US, Democrats and Republicans alike mobilised racial and cultural issues, law and order, family values, woke elites, not to resolve tensions but to keep voters locked in. These contests rarely touch the underlying structures of capitalism or state power. Case study: India and communal politics. A striking example outside the Anglo-American sphere is India. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, has built immense power by exploiting religious identity, particularly the division between Hindus and Muslims. Rather than addressing poverty, inequality, or environmental collapse, the BJP frames itself as the guardian of Hindu culture against supposed threats. Riots, lynching, and polarising campaigns have been encouraged or ignored, deepening communal divides while bolstering electoral victories. The pattern illustrates how identity politics can be used not only to divide, but also to distract from failures in governance and economic justice. Case study: South Africa and racialised politics. Post-apartheid South Africa promised a new politics of equality, but party structures soon turned race into a blunt electoral tool. The African National Congress has maintained dominance by evoking liberation history and racial solidarity, while opposition parties have increasingly courted minority blocs. This has entrenched divisions and often obscured the persistence of extreme inequality, corruption and state violence. Instead of uniting across class lines to tackle systemic exploitation, communities are urged to vote along racial or ethnic loyalties. Case study: Brazil and populist polarisation. Brazil, under Jair Bolsonaro, saw identity politics fused with populism. Bolsonaro mobilised conservative, Catholic and evangelical voters by portraying himself as defender of the traditional families against feminists, LGBT plus people and environmentalists. His opponents were branded enemies of the nation, while systemic issues like land inequality and corporate exploitation remained untouched. This strategy mirrors Trumpism in the US, weaponising cultural identity to mask elite economic alliances. For anarchists, identity is real. People live through class, gender, race and culture, but parties weaponise these realities to sustain their own power. The effect is to fragment solidarity, replacing collective struggle with competitive victimhood or cultural rivalry. As the earlier section on wage slavery highlighted, exploitation is shared across divisions, yet parties ensure that workers blame each other rather than the system. Recognising this strategy is key to building solidarities that bypass party structures and instead foster grassroots unity across difference.